The holiday party was winding down when I saw her. Our CEO, leaning against the bar, sequins catching the light, eyes glassy, laughing too loud at nothing in particular. One by one, people slipped away, pretending they didn't notice. I was halfway to the door myself, until she looked right at me and said, "You're the janitor, right?" Adam Hayes stood in front of the small bedroom mirror, the kind with a faint crack running through the corner, tugging at the collar of his only clean button-down. It had been hanging in the back of his closet for months, smelling faintly of cedar from the old sachet he'd tucked in there years ago. He wasn't sure why he was even bothering. Holiday parties weren't his thing, especially not the kind thrown by a company where he was mostly invisible. From the living room, Emily's voice floated in. "Dad, you're not going like that, are you?" Her tone carried the mix of seriousness and mischief only a 9-year-old could pull off. She appeared in the doorway, clutching a hairbrush like a microphone, wearing her favorite purple pajamas covered in cartoon penguins. "This is as good as it gets," Adam replied, trying to keep his expression neutral. "I'll show my face for an hour, maybe less, grab some free snacks, and come home." Emily crossed her arms, studying him the way he'd seen her inspect science projects or art assignments. "You never do anything fun," she said, shaking her head as if disappointed in an old friend. "And don't tell me fixing the leaky faucet last weekend counts." Adam smirked, but the truth stung. He had let fun fall off the list a long time ago, trading it for extra shifts, secondhand clothes, and keeping the rent paid on their modest two-bedroom. "It's not really my crowd, Em," he said. "Those people are engineers and executives. I'm the guy who cleans their floors." Emily stepped forward and smoothed down his shirt collar with the care of someone arranging flowers. "All the more reason to go. You never know who you'll meet." She glanced toward the dresser and pulled open the top drawer. "Here," she said, fishing out his one decent tie, a navy blue one with tiny silver dots. She held it out like an offering. He sighed, taking it from her. "What's this about, huh? You trying to get me married off to the head of accounting?" She giggled. "No, but maybe you'll meet someone important. Or at least someone who makes you smile." Her tone softened. "You deserve that, Dad." The weight of her words hit harder than he expected. She was only 9, yet somehow she carried an understanding of his loneliness he hadn't realized was so visible. He looked at her, her earnest eyes, the stubborn tilt of her chin, and thought about all the times she'd tried to push him out of his routine. She was growing up fast, and maybe she was right. "An hour," he said finally, slipping the tie around his neck. "No more." Emily grinned, satisfied with her victory. "And if they have those little shrimp things you like, bring some home." Adam laughed, the sound easing the tightness in his chest. "Deal." He grabbed his jacket from the hook by the door, giving her hair a gentle ruffle before stepping into the December night. As the door closed behind him, he wondered why it felt like this short, reluctant trip might turn out to be more than just another evening spent on the sidelines. The rooftop glittered under strings of white lights, their glow reflecting off tall glass panels that boxed in the space. The December air was cold enough to pinch Adam's cheeks, but portable heaters hissed softly at the edges, keeping the crowd comfortable. Music spilled from unseen speakers, upbeat enough to encourage conversation, but not so loud that people had to shout. Adam hovered near the entrance, hands in his jacket pockets, taking in the scene. Men in sharp suits loosened their ties as they laughed over glasses of amber whiskey. Women in shimmering dresses balanced on heels, leaning in close to trade secrets that carried more intrigue than any janitor's shift ever held. Even the bartenders seemed to have a certain polish, pouring cocktails with a flair that made people cheer. He walked slowly toward the buffet table, trying to look like he belonged. A small plate, a couple of crackers, some grapes, anything to keep his hands busy. He took a sip from the plastic cup of soda he'd poured himself, its fizz almost too loud in his ears. From his corner of the room, he could watch the ebb and flow of the evening without being drawn into it. The engineers clustered together, swapping jargon he didn't understand. Marketing folks laughed loudly at stories that probably wouldn't be funny anywhere else. Adam felt like a visitor to a country where he didn't speak the language, nodding, smiling politely when someone made fleeting eye contact, and letting them drift away before it could turn into awkward conversation. For a moment, he thought about Emily, probably curled up on the couch at home with a blanket and their old DVD of Home Alone. He could almost hear her teasing him for standing on the sidelines instead of talking to anyone. Still, he told himself, this was safer. No chance of saying something that would mark him as the janitor in the wrong crowd. That's when the commotion started near the bar. A small ripple passed through the guests. First whispers, then sidelong glances, and finally outright staring. Clare Reynolds, the CEO herself, stood at the center of it all, her usual sharp poise replaced with a loose, unsteady sway. The silver sequins of her dress caught the light as she laughed, too loud, too long, waving off the concerned hand of a junior executive. Her words blurred together, her glass sloshing dangerously close to the edge. Adam had seen her in the hallways at work, all crisp suits and cool nods, never lingering long enough for more than a polite good morning. Tonight, though, she looked like someone entirely different, human, messy, and just a little bit lost. Phones appeared in discreet hands, screens lighting up as people texted under the tables. Adam caught snippets of hushed voices. Don't get involved, just leave her. A few chuckles, more than a few sideways smirks. The group around her began to thin, one by one slipping away into the safety of the crowd. Adam stood frozen for a moment, weighing the situation. She wasn't his responsibility. He could walk away, finish his soda, and be home within the hour like he promised. But something about the image, her standing there alone while everyone pretended not to see, gnawed at him. He set down his plate, picked up his jacket, and began to move toward her. By the time Adam reached the bar, the last of Claire's hesitant audience had already melted into the rest of the party. She stood alone, leaning on the counter with one elbow, her other hand clutching a half-empty glass. Her head tipped slightly, as if she were trying to keep the room from spinning. "Don't call a cab," she said, giggling to no one in particular. "I have people." Her voice, normally sharp and measured in the company meetings Adam had overheard, was now loose around the edges, vowels stretching like soft taffy. The bartender glanced at her and then at Adam, raising an eyebrow as though silently asking if he planned to do something. Adam hesitated. It wasn't like he and Claire were on speaking terms. She passed him in the hallway at work without more than a quick nod, if that. But standing there now, she didn't look like the intimidating CEO who could cut down a proposal in 2 sentences. She looked vulnerable. "Ms. Reynolds?" he ventured, stepping closer. She squinted at him, focusing with visible effort. "You're the janitor, right?" she asked, enunciating like someone piecing together a half-forgotten memory. "Yes, ma'am." A slow smile crept onto her face. "You're kinder than my own assistant," she mumbled, as though that explained everything. Then she swayed again, catching herself against the counter. Adam made a decision. "Come on," he said gently. "Let's get you home." He slipped her coat over her shoulders, steering her toward the exit. She didn't fight him, though she did insist on stopping once to wave grandly at a confused group of engineers on the dance floor. Outside, the cold night air hit them both like a wall. Claire gasped, tugging her coat tighter. Adam led her to his sedan, rusty at the edges, the kind of car that looked permanently tired. She buckled herself in with surprising coordination, then slumped against the passenger side window. The city lights blurred past as he drove, the hum of the engine filling the quiet. He caught himself glancing at her in the rearview mirror, trying to reconcile this image with the woman who moved through the office like a storm front. When they reached her gated driveway, she stirred. "Why would you do this for me?" she asked, her voice quieter now. Adam didn't hesitate. "Because if it were me," he said, "I'd hope someone would do the same." For a second, their eyes met in the glow of the dashboard, hers softer than he'd ever seen them. Then she looked away, fumbling with her keys. Adam waited until she was safely inside before pulling away, unsure if she'd remember any of this in the morning. The sedan's heater coughed once before sending out a stream of lukewarm air, filling the car with the faint scent of pine from the old air freshener clipped to the vent. Claire had her head turned toward the window, cheek resting against the glass, eyes half closed. Her breathing was slow but uneven, like someone drifting between exhaustion and the pull of a restless mind. Adam kept both hands on the wheel, the city sliding by in streaks of neon and shadow. Streetlights painted her face in shifting bands of gold and gray. In the office, her expression was always carved from stone, cool, distant, precise. Tonight, in the dim wash of the dashboard lights, she looked almost like a stranger. There was a fragility in her posture, a looseness that made her seem younger somehow, stripped of the layers of authority and guardedness. They drove in silence for several minutes. Adam could feel the weight of her presence beside him, heavier than the stillness itself. He wasn't used to being this close to her, used to seeing her only across polished floors and conference room doorways. She shifted slightly, her voice breaking the quiet. "You have a daughter," she murmured, as if it were a statement she was confirming with herself rather than a question. "Yes," Adam replied, glancing at her briefly. "Emily. She's 9. Emily," Claire repeated, the name soft in her mouth. "Pretty name." Her head tilted, and she managed a faint smile. "She's lucky to have you." Adam didn't answer right away. Compliments weren't something he collected often, especially not from people like her. "I'm the lucky one," he said finally. The gates to her neighborhood rose ahead, tall, black, and gleaming even in the low light. Adam rolled down his window to punch in the code she mumbled to him, then eased the car forward onto a winding driveway flanked by trimmed hedges and quiet fountains. When they stopped in front of her door, Claire straightened, blinking as though waking from a dream. She reached for the handle but paused, turning to face him fully for the first time. Her gaze was steady now, her voice quieter but clearer. "Why would you do this for me?" Adam kept his eyes on hers. "Because if it were me," he said, "I'd hope someone would do the same." For a moment, neither of them moved. Then she gave a small nod, like she was tucking the answer away somewhere private. She opened the door, stepping into the cold. Adam got out too, walking her up the short path to her door in case she needed an arm to steady herself. She fumbled with her keys, the metallic clink echoing in the stillness. Just before she turned the knob, she looked back at him. The look wasn't quite gratitude, not quite apology, something in between. "Good night, Adam." He nodded. "Good night, Ms. Reynolds." Only when the door shut did he return to his car, the image of her standing there lingering in his mind all the way home. The next morning, Adam was back in the building before the sun had cleared the horizon. The lobby still smelled faintly of pine cleaner from the night crew, and the only sound was the steady swish of his mop across the marble floor. His body moved on instinct, dip, ring, push, while his mind replayed fragments of the night before. He told himself she probably wouldn't remember much. People rarely did after a night like that. Still, the image of her at the bar, the way she'd asked that question in the driveway, "Why would you do this for me?" kept surfacing like an unanswered call. Adam had no illusions about his place in the company. If anyone else had been in his position last night, they might have posted photos, told stories, used the moment as leverage. He hadn't even considered it. But in the stark light of morning, he began to wonder whether stepping in had been the right move. In some workplaces, doing the right thing could still get you in trouble. The elevator dinged softly behind him. He glanced over his shoulder and froze. Clare Reynolds stepped out, dressed in a tailored navy suit that looked as crisp as if it had been pressed by the hour. Her sunglasses were off, her hair neatly pinned, and in her right hand she carried a white paper coffee cup. There was no trace of last night's looseness. She was once again the version of herself everyone knew, composed, deliberate, unreadable. Her eyes found him almost immediately. "Adam, right?" He gripped the mop handle a little tighter. "Yes, ma'am. In my office. 10 minutes. She didn't slow down as she spoke, just kept walking toward the executive wing, her heels clicking like a metronome on the polished floor. Adam stood there, heart beginning to thump in a slow, heavy rhythm. That was it. No explanation, no small talk, just the summons. His first thought was that it might be the last conversation he'd have here as an employee. He propped the mop in the corner, wiped his hands on his work pants, and tried to steady his breathing. "She's going to fire me," he told himself. "Or worse, make a scene about me overstepping." Either way, there wasn't much he could do now but walk into whatever waited for him behind those glass doors. When the elevator carried him up to her floor, the difference in atmosphere hit him instantly. The air was cooler, the light from the floor-to-ceiling windows brighter, the silence thicker. It wasn't a space built for people like him. It was for decisions, deals, and conversations with too many zeros attached. As he approached her office, the receptionist gave him a quick, curious glance before gesturing toward the open door. Adam stepped inside, bracing himself for impact. Claire's office was the kind of space Adam had only ever glimpsed from the hallway. Polished hardwood floors, walls lined with shelves that held awards and framed photos, and a wide desk positioned so that the skyline spread out behind her like a painting. The floor-to-ceiling windows flooded the room with morning light, but there was still a certain weight to the air, as if the space itself understood that important decisions were made here. She gestured toward one of the leather chairs opposite her desk. "Sit," she said simply. Adam lowered himself into the seat, the cushion sighing under his weight. He rested his hands on his knees, every instinct telling him to keep his posture straight and his expression neutral. She took her time setting down her coffee and picking up a slim silver pen, twirling it between her fingers as if she were sorting her thoughts. "I owe you an apology," she said at last, her voice steady but softer than he'd ever heard it. Adam blinked. An apology? And probably a raise. She leaned back slightly, her eyes holding his. "I was out of control last night. Instead of taking advantage of the situation, or worse, making it public, you helped me. No one else did." The words settled in the space between them, heavier than they looked. Adam searched for something to say, but all that came to him was, "You don't need to." She cut him off with a small shake of her head. "My father was a janitor." Her gaze drifted toward the window for a moment before returning to him. "Raised me alone, the way you're raising Emily." Adam's heart gave a sharp jolt at the sound of his daughter's name. "You know about Emily?" "I read HR reports," Claire said, a hint of a smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. "And I remember the people who work hard and stay kind. You've been here, what, 3 years?" "4. 4, Adam said, his voice cautious. She nodded. 4 years without a single complaint. 4 years showing up early, staying late, fixing problems no one else notices until they're already solved." Her pen stilled in her hand. "I can't ignore that. And I don't want to." He opened his mouth, unsure whether to thank her or tell her it was just part of the job, but she went on before he could decide. "There's a facilities coordinator position opening next month. Better pay, better hours, full benefits for you and Emily. It's yours if you want it." For a moment, Adam just stared. The words were so far from what he'd prepared himself to hear that they didn't register at first. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," she replied, her voice firm but warm now. Then, after a pause, her expression softened even more. "And tell Emily she was right. You did meet someone important." The pen in her hand clicked softly as she set it down. The conversation was over, but Adam remained in his seat for an extra heartbeat, trying to steady the swirl of relief, disbelief, and gratitude rising inside him. When he finally stood, Claire gave him a small, genuine smile, one that didn't feel like it belonged to the CEO he'd known before last night, but to someone who had chosen to remember what it felt like to be helped when the world wasn't watching. That night, Adam walked up the steps to their apartment with an ease in his chest he hadn't felt in a long time. The air was sharp with the bite of early winter, but it felt good, clean, almost electric. He pushed the door open to find Emily sprawled on the couch under a blanket, a plate of half-eaten frozen pizza on the coffee table, and a cartoon paused on the TV. "Hey, kiddo," he said, hanging his jacket on the hook. Emily sat up immediately, eyes bright. "You're smiling," she said, as if it were a rare and notable event. "Something happened." Adam chuckled, toeing off his shoes. "Yeah, something happened." He walked over and sat beside her, the couch sinking under their combined weight. For a moment, he just looked at her, the way her hair stuck up a little on one side, the way her feet kept shifting under the blanket like she couldn't keep still. "You remember how you told me to go to that party?" he asked. "Yep," she said proudly. "Because you never do anything fun." "Well," Adam began, leaning back, "you were right. I met someone important." Emily's eyes widened. "Who?" "Clare Reynolds." Her mouth fell open. "The scary boss lady?" Adam laughed. "She's not that scary. And she's not just my boss anymore. She's the one who offered me a new job today. Facilities coordinator. Better pay, better hours. Health insurance for both of us." Emily's gasp was so sharp it could have cut glass. She threw her arms around him, nearly knocking him backward. "Dad, that's amazing." She pulled back just enough to look him in the face. "See? I told you parties can change your life." He hugged her tightly, the warmth of her small frame grounding him more than any title or paycheck ever could. "Yeah, you did," he said, his voice catching just enough for her to notice. "Are you crying?" she asked, tilting her head. Adam shook his head with a smile, blinking away the moisture in his eyes. No, just really happy. But deep down, it wasn't only happiness. It was the feeling of being seen, not as the janitor, not as the man who blended into the background, but as someone who mattered. They finished the night eating pizza straight from the box. The cartoon still paused on the screen. Outside, the city kept moving, unaware of the small miracle that had happened in their little living room. Adam knew the promotion would change things, make life easier in 100 practical ways. But what stayed with him most was something else entirely. The reminder that kindness, even when given quietly and without expectation, has a way of circling back. And as Emily leaned against him, still buzzing with excitement, he thought about how sometimes the world does remember. Not all heroes wear suits. Some wear janitor overalls, carry their daughter's artwork in their wallet, and drive their drunk bosses home, never expecting anything in return.